Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Real Heroes Show. You got Cory and Nick with you here as always, and it's Friday, which means we're reviewing this week's episode of Star Wars Rebels.
Yes.
Oh, wait. I'm being corrected. This is an episode of The Bad Batch, not Star Wars Rebels that we're talking about.
You're absolutely right.
My dearest apologies. Spoilers out the wazoo today for episode 11 of The Bad Batch, now streaming on Disney Plus, entitled Devil's Deal. Nick, how you doing today, bud?
Doing well. It's Friday.
We made it. It's another week.
We made it.
A Marvel movie coming out this weekend.
Crazy. It's been, what, year? 2 years? Year and a half? 2 years?
Far
Too
From
long.
Home came out
Too long.
in July of 19.
Oh, God. Wow.
I know. It's crazy. And Far From Home's not even most people's favorite Marvel film.
No,
so
it's not.
Endgame came out in April.
Endgame's the last movie I always think about is the last Marvel movie.
Yeah, we're on 2 years and 3 months. So it's kind of crazy. But let's talk about some Star Wars, man. So in this episode today, we got a little bit of a detour from the Bad Batch. We did not see much of them. We saw more of Crosshair than the rest of the Bad Batch, but this episode took place on Ryloth, and we got some big time cameos from a main cast member from Star Wars Rebels. So we got to see a young Syndulla, which I was not expecting in the slightest. I don't know about you, but when they went there, and then Cham and Alira were there, and I was like, oh man, we're gonna see a teenage Hera. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, that was really cool. I didn't really expect it, but the way the episode started kind of dawned on me, and I thought, are we getting a young Hera here? And then they mentioned the name, and I was like, oh, well, okay, cool. I wouldn't have really guessed it, but I guess it kind of makes sense a little bit that the Empire is trying to infiltrate pretty much every sector of the galaxy, so Ryloth was bound to be on its list of things to come by, and seeing where we've come from in Clone Wars, to where Rebels takes place and where the Bad Batch takes place in between those two shows, and it has involved other characters thus far, so to and from, and now we get another one with Hera, so it's kind of cool.
Kind of made sense that last week's episode, seeing it after this one, it's the Empire is just going from planet to planet and just taking over. It was Raxus last week, it's Ryloth this week, and I think his name is Rampart is the Imperial officer. He's just going from place to place and assuming power and control, and all that's pretty interesting. We also got Chopper. Chopper is one of my favorite droids in Star Wars, voiced by the great Dave Filoni himself, which just cracks me up every time. I think there's also been a handful of interviews and Twitter threads where it's basically been admitted that everything Chopper says is a curse word, which cracks me up. So just to see him, and the way they introed him, he did his little periscope popped up, kind of like R2 in New Hope, and then you got to see the rest of Chopper come up from there, which was pretty awesome. In a very good George Lucas, it's poetry, it rhymes thing, we've now seen in the Bad Batch Baby Kanan all the way at the beginning, and now the young Hera, and obviously we know that the two of them meet and forge a romantic relationship during Rebels, which is pretty cool. And by the end of this episode, Hera's on the run, and this could be the event that kind of separates her from her family, forces her into a life of living on her own. She joins up with the rebellion and then becomes the captain of the Ghost and the rebel leader that we know from the rest of the stuff. So pretty neat to be able to see a different show entirely kind of inform the backstory of a real fan favorite character in the Star Wars universe.
Yeah, absolutely. It was really cool to see a little bit more about her backstory, much like with young Kanan, and how his trauma started early with Order 66. So we can see again sort of the poetry here with you want to say trauma is poetry, but
poetry rhymes.
Yeah, her trauma comes from the Empire taking over to being shot down by Crosshair and having to be accused of what were they trying to accuse
treason.
her of? Treason, right? Yeah. So it's treason then. Yeah. little palp.
Oh man.
Little palp quote there. But
are you threatening me, Master Jedi?
So yeah, it was again the poetry between Kanan and Hera's tragedies and traumas.
Yeah, they're two kids that are born from tragedy, and it makes sense that they're then attracted to each other.
It's almost a bit, it's almost a bit Shakespearean. Yeah. Again, the poetry kind of resides in that with Shakespeare too, but it's like, well, here you go.
Yeah, and I guess sometime between now and the events of Star Wars Rebels, Hera will lose the accent from living on Ryloth, because she had a pretty thick accent, which it was Vanessa Marshall doing the voice. I checked in the credits to make sure. So I guess she probably just added on it sounded like a somewhat French or European accent for the role, just I guess because that's where they were at, and her parents sounded like that. Yeah, it is what it is. I'm sure the internet will have a field day talking about her accent, which I think is dumb. But
it's not exactly accurate. It's not truly French.
That was like people on Twitter were upset because they were like, I can't believe they had Freddie Prinze Jr. voice Kane, and he sounded like an adult. He's supposed to be a child. I'm like, it's a goddamn cartoon. Shut up.
Exactly. Like,
who cares?
Yeah, that's where we need to leave it with the accent, because much like what happens in real life, if you go away from the country where we used to have an accent, most likely you'll lose the accent, or you won't really sound the same.
That's it, man.
After some time. So, and again, we don't quite know how long she's been away, but it had to be enough time for her to lose an accent, and that's all that matters.
Yep. I grew up in New Jersey. I was there for 25 years. I never said the word y'all in my entire life. I moved down to Florida, and that's how everybody speaks. And I say y'all all the time now. And I sound like I'm from the South when I say it, even though I'm very much not from the South. So that's all we're going to say on the accent. If you have a problem with the accent, just like unsubscribe and go away. So next thing I wanted to talk about is Crosshair. So first of all, we finally got to see he doesn't have the bandages on anymore. Back of his head, pretty messed up from the
it's a little scarred
fight they had a couple episodes ago, but he's used in a very tactical way, which I thought was pretty cool. Like seeing him as an elite trooper, where he's up on the ridge with his sniper rifle, and he shoots the tracker onto the ship that Gobi and Hera are on, that informs them about the Bad Batch probably, and later on he's the sniper that takes out Senator Tar to help them frame Hera's dad and everything, which was like a headshot. And that wasn't a stun blast. I think that was like a just straight up shot to the dome on a kids television show on Disney Plus. Hooray, violence.
When it happened, I was like, oh shit.
Yeah, man. I was like, it was like John Wick all of a sudden.
Guy was assassinated.
And then he went down like a sack of potatoes, and then they put him on like a rolly cart at the end of the episode, and they just like rolled him away. It was
I was like, oh wow, okay, well, I guess that's how they do it in Star Wars. So,
but cool to see the Empire using Crosshair. Obviously, he's clearly brainwashed from the enhancement of his chip and everything. He's good soldiers follow orders, doing the whole thing he's doing, and I dug it. We haven't seen a lot of Crosshair in the last like 5 or 6 episodes, aside from the one where Cad Bane showed up. So cool to see him, see how the Empire is using him. And he's really kind of like the first elite trooper that's out there, which is pretty cool. And then lastly, the Empire pulled a little bit of a Darth Vader in Empire Strikes Back, where they altered the terms of their deal, and the people on Ryloth need to pray that they don't alter them any further. So the Empire was taking over this mining refinery, and then it turns out that they're converting it into a military facility. So kind of interesting that they're not only just like occupying planets, but they're taking something that's pre-existing for a good use or an economic use, and just turning it into a place to build more weapons. So and
it was kind of like, no, I'm not getting Hera to spy of the Empire.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, yes, no, I'm not trying to have Hera spy on the Empire. Like, I mean, that's what you get kids to do sometimes. But at the same time, like, they'll find out, and they did, and the entanglement, between Hera's family and Senator and the Empire, and I have to say, between the Empire kind of being like, we're just gonna surrender, and then they just swooped in and took over the occasion, and it's like, now they kind of obviously playing that out. But Crosshair, he was a son of a bitch in this episode, man.
Yeah, man.
Like, I like that we got more of him, but at the same time, like you were saying, you just realize how brainwashed and how far gone he is from being the Crosshair we knew prior to, from the first part of the Clone Wars season 7. So I'm like, damn it, Crosshair, like, you are just you've turned into a son of a bitch that I don't want to say I want to see him get killed off, but I hope there's a way to for him to have some sort of Darth Vader-ish redemption. Like, I think we've talked about it before. Maybe they find a way to abduct him and
his chip out or something.
Just get that chip removed, and then I'm not going to say they live happily ever after, because we don't know where they are past this point yet. So, because in every other piece of Star Wars content that's out there, there's nothing that mentions them per se. So,
true.
It's kind of the same thing. And I don't know how they would really ever do it, or who they would get to sort of portray them on, like, live action.
Yeah, because they don't really look like Tamir Morrison.
Right.
I remember the Bad Batch kind of looks different from the rest of the clones. So
yeah, and Mr. Baker can't portray all at the same time. So,
although I saw a video, I don't know if you've seen it, but when he reads these lines as the Bad Batch, he doesn't do everybody separately. He literally just reads the script and changes his voice in real time as he's going.
Yeah,
which is like, holy shit, that's incredible.
Yeah, like, as someone who loves voice acting, and just I have a little bit of a knack for it myself, and and I've practiced certain voices, as you know, Corey, but to our viewers and audience out there, I can do a number of voices, which I'm not going to do right now, but I know
I'll have to do a different video.
Kind of teasing, just
like
me
having a conversation with you as different characters from different movies.
but it's hard because and I know he's got, like, the right sort of liquids and vocal cord treatments to, and not to mention his just experience overall, but and talent, but still, just to change your voice on the fly like that. I mean, it's like just kind of mesmerizing to see, because again, you have, like, your normal talking voice, and then you've got 5 other voices that you're doing, and they might be kind of slightly similar, but also they're slightly different,
right?
Enough that to change your vocal cords, like, to a higher or lower, or more serious, or like kind of a little bit of a more Englishy British accent. It's more than practice. So
yeah, and it's not even just the Bad Batch. I mean, like, if there's an episode like where Cut showed up earlier this season, or Hauser, who was the clone trooper on Ryloth that was with Cham and Gobi. Right. I mean, like, every time a clone shows up, it's got to be him doing the voice. Like, when it hits the credits, it just says starring D. Bradley Baker as the Bad Batch, and that's like the main cast card, and everybody else is just secondary. It's insane. It's
he is like the star of the show, pretty much. I mean, and to think about how much he had to do back in the Clone Wars, because it was the Clone Wars, and he was just all over the place, in a good way, of course. But so I don't know how they would ever transition that from cartoon to live action, but
That would be very tough.
Yeah.
Like, extremely difficult.
But again, I think this is why the show like this works, you know, and it's different. It's again, like we enjoy it and other people enjoy it, and they're excited to see a group like the Bad Batch and kind of what happens to them. So, I know we're nearing the end of the season, and while I enjoyed this episode quite a bit more than the last episode. I kind of wonder where they're going to go and what's still going to happen, because not that I want to say this was fillerish by any means, but it was like another like on the path of the main story, the main plot, but it was like a slight sort of like, this is the main story. It was almost like a little like roundabout way. Like, well, they had to go around and stop here to do this, and then they're still kind of on the path, but like it still made sense because of what's taking place. Because it's like, we're gonna make a quick pit stop to show you about Hera, where the Empire is expanding, how they're expanding, what they're doing to the people, senators included, and we're gonna move right back to where the main path belongs. But
it almost kind of felt like to a degree, the backstory episode from Mythic Quest this season, where it was like, Bad Batch were really not even present in this episode. They were there for a minute and a half long scene when they dropped off some weapons to the folks from Ryloth. Yeah. And that was it. Everything else was completely focused on Hera and her parents and Rampart and all the folks that were actually, part of this Imperial occupation. And I'm curious to see how they tie this into the greater story. I'm assuming the Bad Batch will help rescue Hera.
I think so.
Her off of Ryloth and send her on her way to becoming who she becomes. And as long as that's what they do, then that's fine, because that gives you additional information that makes Rebels a better show while still doing entertaining stuff within this series, which for me that's fine, as long as they do something like that. If it gets left like this, then maybe not. But this one kind of feels like almost like an old Clone Wars, like a two-parter, which is interesting. They haven't done that yet in this series.
It very much had this Clone Wars type feel. Like I think I didn't even realize that the Bad Batch hadn't been in it yet, because Crosshair was in it, of course, and I know he was a member of the Bad Batch, and I guess technically still is. But I was like, oh yeah, that's right. They're in. This is a show from them. And then they eventually come in when they were like, here are the blasters and the thermal detonators.
They're the main characters, right?
Yeah, exactly. Okay. they're the protagonists, and I kind of like the small scene with Hera and Omega.
Yeah, that was great.
Which is like, no funny business, and she's like, funny business. Like,
I'll be watching you.
Yeah. But then Hunter's like, oh, you made a new friend, and it's like, hey, I guess she did.
Yeah, and Omega was like, she's weird. I like her.
Yeah. Yeah, and which is very much happens to to everyone with making new friends, and I wonder where their friendship goes beyond this. Because
maybe Hera joins the crew for a little bit.
Yeah,
could be fun.
And we don't know where Omega fits in beyond this as well, because we don't see her in Rebels at all. So
that's right.
I don't want to say they're going to be dark enough to be like, we're going to kill off Omega and she's a kid. That would be pretty. Well, I have to digress. They killed younglings.
Yeah, and in Rogue One they kill everybody. So I mean,
exactly. So there's been some darkness in Star Wars before.
They're not afraid to do it at this point.
Which I like the daring risks, just because it's like, again, we're driving home the importance of what's happening here.
War is no joke, believe it or not.
No,
it's
not
serious, dangerous time to be somebody that's on the run in the galaxy, which is what the Bad Batch are, and there may be some consequences for their actions. Who knows? So, so if you had to score this one out of 10, I know we were a little tough on last week's, but I think we're bouncing back up towards a higher rating this week, right?
Yeah, I think so. Like I was kind of initially gauging it around like a 7.5.
Okay.
Because of again, like I feel like we're getting back on course. It wasn't like real filler. It furthered the development of the characters a little more, but more so on the Empire Crosshair side. We did get a backstory with Hera. We get to see more about the Empire takeover. So again, I think because of all that, it, you know, not a whole lot aside from that happened, but those are good enough points to, like, I think deserving like a better rating from last week, which I think I gave like a 6. So
yeah, I think we did,
you know, I mean, I'd say like at least a 7.5 for this one is like suffices. What about you?
Yeah, I was gonna go 8 for this one.
Okay.
I'm a huge Rebels fan, and they're like, depending on what day I wake up, I actually like Rebels more than Clone Wars, because there are
certain episodes for
better moments in Rebels than there are in Clone Wars, like the season 2 finale with Vader and Ahsoka, and,
yeah.
The Obi-Wan Maul stuff, all the stuff with Thrawn and the World Between Worlds. I'm a huge Rebels fan, and I loved, and I was surprised to see it, which I thought was great. It did kind of derail off the path of the main story a little bit, but we'll see where it goes. So I'm not going to give it like a 10 out of 10, but a solid 8 for me, just because I was excited to see those characters and live in that world. Oh, and the animation was off the fucking charts for this one. Like, there were a couple scenes where I was looking at it and I was like, there's no way this is animated. This is like live action. Like, some of the landscapes and everything just look completely out of this world. So
I think we
not enough props can be thrown to the Lucasfilm animation team for this series. They completely have outdone themselves.
Yeah, and I think again for animation, just like the amount of like legitimate people they're putting on the screen at one time, like it's been ramped up a lot.
The heads in the crowd aren't just like little dots at the end. They're actual people with features and are moving and whatnot. It's incredible. So
facial expressions, moving features. So like, the animation alone for this season has been
it's a 11 out of 10 for
by
every
far
episode.
The best animation in like a Star Wars cartoon, like by far.
Oh, and seeing Chopper in the Clone Wars animation style, beautiful.
It was great.
Unreal. So much detail. Very, very cool. So so that's gonna do it for us. Now we'd love to hear from you guys. Drop us a comment below. Let us know what you thought of this episode. Did you think it was too much of a detour from the main storyline? Were you happy to see Hera show up and get some Rebels love in there? Drop us that comment. Let us know below. And if you'd like to support the channel, you can do so for free. Just go ahead and like this video, click the subscribe button, which a lot of you have recently. We're over 170 followers now, which we can't thank you enough for. Also, turn on that notification bell so that way you don't miss any future content from us. We will have a Black Widow review up tomorrow, and then some new videos coming out next week. So till next time, we'll see you guys in the next video.
Peace.